Hi there, and welcome to another in my series for cinematographers. Well, I've been shooting films for over 30 years professionally, broadcast documentaries and dramas, but this is where I like to informally just talk about the craft that I've learnt. And wherever I can, I use examples that I've shot myself, just because those are the ones that I know most about, where the lights are, which lenses we've used, and what's motivated the camera to move or not to move. Plus there's all sorts of other little tips and tricks that I'll throw in, which don't make it to the textbooks, but they always seem to affect the way a scene is shot on the day. So there'll be something for you wherever you are on your journey into the camera department, be it a trainee, an assistant, an operator, or even a DOP in your own right.
One of the key ways to develop as a cinematographer is to work on your shot development, so you can bring to your director a lyrical way of telling the story, which is an alternative to cutting to and fro across a scene. I've included this shot because it's, again, shot development. It's one shot designed to cover the bulk of a scene. It has been cut up by the editor, in fact. I've actually tried to stitch it back together again just so that I can show you how the shot was designed. And I've done it on a jib which is on a track, and the camera is underslung on the jib. I think I've got a shot of the arrangement which explains it a little bit, but it starts off looking down directly on the table, and I'm just going to play the sequence now and let you watch it. There are a couple of funny little dissolves in there that I put in where the camera cuts away. You can just ignore those.
Jesus answered, "How can the guests of the bridegroom fast while he is with them? They cannot, so long as they have him with them. But the time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them, and on that day they will fast. No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, otherwise the new piece will pull away from the old. Wine will burst the skins, and both the wine and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins."
So let's go through the shot development of this. It begins looking vertically down over the table. Camera's on the jib and on the track, and the whole thing just unfolds as this top shot tracking down across the table, and it just reveals the action and just establishes the scene of a dinner table. The shot then develops from that top shot into a wide shot at the end of the table, so there's a little transition move, and then it establishes the wide shot which traditionally you would have begun the scene with at the very start. And there is that traditional frame, if you like, finally establishing the whole scene. It's worth just mentioning the lighting there. A key light coming in from the side on the right, as if there's an open window there, and then a strong backlight on the main character. So he's the only one in the scene who's got a true backlight, and it's centered on him for metaphorical reasons. And I've put some smoke in so that you can see the beams of light coming through that window. And then the camera just gradually then pushes in on that track through the person on the right. And the whole thing just gradually develops. And as it goes, of course, I've choreographed all these people to hand food across the table. So what is really a little boring little speech, if you like, has shot interest, and you've kept the interest going by kinetic energy going through the frame. And then we finally get to this end piece, so that 35mm has been used to give you the wide shot and then end up on this mid shot, really, where there's nice sharp focus on him. I've got a wide aperture on here, so I've got a depth of field which gives you that little kind of bokeh in the bottom left hand corner. Somebody's passing something, and then in the right above it's also gone soft, so the lens sort of develops its own character through the duration of the shot. So I really wanted to give some informality into this whole scene, so I've kept that camera really underslung low so it can creep through all this action. And I've made sure that the actors here keep handing each other bits of food and stuff just to keep the action going, so it feels real and you're drawn into the story. So the camera keeps pushing through this stuff, just skirts over the top of the grapes, and that lens keeps pushing in, still on a 35mm lens, and it pushes into quite a nice single backlit, and the side lit from the right hand side, and a little bit of candlelight coming in from the left, just flickering. And that effect is just created with a little Mizar or a dado light softened up with some trace and somebody flickering the dimmer switch. Now here's another scene which I've filmed in one shot with no cutaways. I've sold it to the director. I said, listen, we can do this in one shot if we can just rehearse it, choreograph it a couple of times. It means you won't get any cutaways unless you've got time to go and get them. I think we did shoot 1 or 2 cutaways, but I don't think they're used. In fact, the editor has shortened the scene a little bit, so there, although it's one continuous camera move, there is a little dissolve you'll see.
When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion, with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha kum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately, the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this, and told them to give her something to eat.
We'll just go through this again now and talk through it. I've set up this shot. Again, it's on the track and a dolly. There's no jib involved. It's just on the dolly, which does rise up and down on it. It's a hydraulic dolly. And I'm coming in at head height through these characters who are they're at a wake at the funeral for the girl. So I've kept it very dark in there, and I've just got a little light above the door here, which is a Kina flow, which you'll know from the stores. You can pull Kina flows out, and it's suspended from the ceiling and closed right up with the brown doors, so there's very little light coming through, just enough to lure us through. It just gives some light into the curtains and just pulls us through into the room beyond, and we can see through the gap that there's something beyond as the camera pushes through, and on it comes, and then we can see the dead body lying there.
Jesus saw a commotion.
Just pulls it there.
Crying and wailing.
Just talk a little bit about the lighting here. I've got her in a shawl to signify death. really catches the eye, obviously. And I've got 2 lights to light this scene. One is the candle, which is a little warm source. It's not giving any light to speak of into the scene. It's just put it there to give a little contrast and also to signify life. So I've put it there for metaphorical significance as well. And then to the left I've got my key light. So out here, we never look up this way, but out in this direction here I've got a 4K HMI, and that's bounced into a sheet of poly, white polystyrene, and then that floods back into the room. So the light is obviously facing away from her and facing into the poly, and the polystyrene itself is bouncing that really soft light back into the room. So the camera keeps pushing in gently.
Loudly, he went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not
And then
dead."
the editor actually cuts into this shot here. It's quite a good cut he's chosen. But in actuality, the shot does develop into that shot. I managed to get the camera low enough so it's not only the close-up of his hand, but I've still got that candle light reference in the back of the shot. Beautiful soft light. I love these shadows.
After he put them all out,
He
took
takes
the
her
child's
hand,
father and mother,
and then it's quite important the timing on this next bit. I drift up.
he took her by the hand.
You can rehearse this, but it's important that the actor knows exactly when to make his move. And so I'll often work it out
Get up.
with the actor and either say, when you see the camera move in this direction, then count to 3 and then move. Or often I might just have my finger in the edge of shot so that he can see it, and I can drop my finger and give him a cue that can't be heard. Or I might just say cue, whisper it so that he can hear it or she can hear it. And it really helps your camera operating if you can get the precise timing with the actor involved. You don't always need to do that, but sometimes, especially on detailed work, it really helps just to have free communication with the actor. Of course, it's important in the lighting, because she's lit with that polystyrene that I'm talking about, that she's not masked by the light, by any action that he does. And symbolically, she's looking towards him and is lit from a light which is coming from his direction. Of course, it's just lighting his back. We don't need to see his face. We know what he looks like. We don't go round for a single on him. It's such beautiful action on her. She was such a great little actress, just a local girl, an extra, but really sweet acting. Then I come back out to this frame that we started on, actually. I've got that cycle thing going on. I do like to start and finish with the same frame. Before, of course, there were other characters in this space who were in the wake, the funeral wake. So I've just let them melt away, and I've come back to this wider shot, to the one we started from, and we've got this frame within a frame going on here. And that's how the scene is left. Here's another developing shot. Hope you're still awake. This is similar to the last one in as much as the sort of end frame reflects the start frame, although it's a sort of mirror image in this one. And the background to this shot was that we've been filming all day, and we got to the end of the day, and I think I was about 20 minutes ahead so that we could, we were wrapping 20 minutes early, but it emerged that production had left a scene off the schedule, which they wanted to shoot. So obviously that was going to run into overtime, but the pressure was on to shoot something very quickly. The good thing about it was that there were only 2 actors involved, but I had to find a fresh location without having to move the unit. So I wandered around the locality for a few minutes and found this hillside. And in my favour was some unusual weather conditions for the area, in as much as there was a sort of light cloud, almost a sort of mist hanging over the area, which was quite unusual, but that gave me a really soft light to work with, which was quite a rare treat out in Morocco. It's usually a very harsh environment to film in terms of light. There's a lot of light control to do, but on this particular early evening, it was all being filtered through this, effectively like a silk that you might put up to soften the light. So I put together a developing shot, which we'll look at now, and here's a picture of my grip, Lassan, who's a fantastic grip, and you'll find that once you get to use grips, they'll teach you an awful lot. Lassan's worked on films like Hideous Kinky, Black Hawk Down, Kingdom of Heaven, The Hills Have Eyes. So vast experience, and they can really make your shot work. And so we set up a shot around this boulder in the landscape, and have a look at it, and then we'll talk it through. I just dropped the dialogue track for the purposes. I don't need it. So I'll just walk through this shot now and explain my motivation. Firstly, I like to start with a little mystery. So here is something completely out of focus. We don't know who this figure is. We don't need to know at the moment. So why tell them everything initially? So it just plays out. We can see it's a landscape and somebody coming towards us. So it plays out. It's gradually walking into the focal range, but at a certain point we have this figure come into the shot, the edge of the gown. So we're into the film now, so we know who this person is. So that means I don't have to see the face of this character, Jesus, in order to establish him. The corner of his gown is sufficient. So that's all I need to see. So I don't need to reveal everything and be completely explicit about everything. If you're happy, and if the director is also happy to credit the audience with some intelligence, then it means you can work the shots this way. Anyway, he breaks into the frame, and there's that dynamic line of the gown across the frame, which is developed, and it sort of splits the frame in two. We've got a couple of things going on, some interesting dynamics. But let's just play it forward a little bit more. He comes in and sits down, and then we pull focus to him, and the plot unfolds. And then there's this little bit of narrative over the top, and it specifically references his hand and the script. So now we begin to see both characters. And it's not long before you can see that the camera begins to track. So you can just detect it beginning to track now. You can, if you see the rock, that's gradually moving around and giving some fluid dynamic to the shot. And of course there comes a point in time where the frame I've got here becomes just to profile on this actor. So then you have to find a certain place in the script and a certain point in the track where you can transfer the camera's attention to the other character, and let's just see what happens. So it reaches that point, and then it was still tracking, but then you can see I've just put a little pan in there, and that brings us round. So we've got that two-shot, and that takes us round, and so we're now getting the reverse angle. It's all shot on a 35mm lens, and then I've ensured that I've sent this character off rather than exit frame left. I've got him going off into the distance on a line. I've made sure that there's like a line of chalk or a marker for that actor to follow. So it gives us that sense of depth in the landscape. And then as he moves away, then you can see I'm continuing to track, and I'm now tracking away, but I'm also jibbing up. So the camera's come up on the tripod. He walks into this shot, and in fact the editor chooses to fade out of this action here. But in fact, if I was able to, I had the rushes, I'll show you this actually goes into quite a big close-up where he comes into this part of the frame, a big close-up, pauses for a minute, and then walks out of the frame. And by that time, this little character here is just a little dot on the landscape, and you're left with a sort of similar shot to the one you started from. So I sort of build in a cycle. So actually at the beginning of this shot, the editor's come in late again, but I would have started this character right in the distance and he came up, so there was plenty of time for the mystery to unfold. But the editor's chosen to come in a little bit late to it. We'll just play it through again. Just begins, you're just waiting for it to come into focus, and then you're taken by surprise as that cloth comes in from the other garment. The hand comes out, and then that move as he comes down is just enough to cue the grip to start tracking very gently around as this unfolds. Again, you can see that soft. You can see how soft and forgiving the light is. I didn't have to do any lighting here. I didn't have to put anything in. It's just so soft and even, a rare treat in those conditions. But it meant that, I don't know how long this shot lasts, probably a couple of minutes, but it meant that I could just do the whole shot in one take. Often you have to change the lighting just because it's so harsh, but you didn't have to in here. So that's, again, shot development. You don't have to do it, but the thing is, it can be fun. It is a challenge. It's a great challenge for the focus puller, for the grip, for operating. I'm operating as well as DOPing. There's a nice lyrical fluidity to it, and it's just a change from having to reset and cut, and it allows the actors to perform their piece uninterrupted, which for them is actually quite a nice change. And of course it has that honesty of shot, if you like. Having a single shot in which the narrative just keeps unfolding implies that the truth is being told because there's no editing going on. So we've looked at various ways you can focus on shot development as a director of photography. Started off with just static shots in which the shot doesn't actually develop, but it's only the action contained in that static frame that develops and is provided by the actors themselves. And then we've looked at ways that you can incorporate simple techniques like precise focus pulls to develop the shot's narrative, panning, jibbing, use of gimbals and tracks. And we've spent some time looking at the detail of how you can choreograph the camera and the action so they work together harmoniously. And we've looked at how you can disguise, camouflage, and even lose the camera's movement within the action of the actors and the kinetic energy that's happening on screen. There's a couple of films that are worth watching. Certainly, if you want to go back and watch Rope by Alfred Hitchcock, that was concerned with doing a whole film in a single take, although it was restricted by the size of the film magazines then, so there are some kind of would-be invisible cuts in there. Birdman's a great film to watch for that.
What the hell is going on? Hey! Ow! That hurt! Get up! Back away!
So Carver's the reason you became an actor, huh?
What? Listen to me. This is my fucking show. I did the work. I raised the money. I arranged the fucking press.
Oh, Jesus. They called me for an interview. I told them the first thing that came into my head.
Really? The cover of the art section, for Christ's sake. That came to your fuck the art section. You told them the first thing that came to your head. Right, because that's you, Mike, right? You're Mr. Natural. Mr. Fuck the scene you stare at my massive hard-on, right? That's the truth of the moment.
Did you think it looked massive?
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. You don't get hard on my stage unless I tell you to.
Your stage?
Yeah.
Oh, let me tell you something. This stage has belonged to a lot of great actors,
Really?
but you are not one of them.
Really, pal? So you wrote your own lines, huh?
Ow! I did.
Yeah, you wrote a few changes and you mumbled a little bit. You self-absorbed.
Hey, I'm self-absorbed. Look at you.
Yeah, you nobody spiteful piece of shit.
Nobody.
Yeah.
My massive hard-on got 50,000
A
views.
cat playing with a dildo gets more than that. Get the fuck out of here.
care
Yes,
about
you
any
do.
of them.
You
I'm a
care.
theater actor,
I don't give a
man.
shit. You care. Everybody says, oh, Mike is so honest. Mike is so fucking truthful. Listen, you said in the interview your father was a drunk like Carver. Is that true, Mac? Is that true?
No.
Because my
what?
father was. My father was a mean fucking drunk. You understand?
Okay.
He beat the shit out of us. That was okay, though, because at least when he was beating us, he wasn't thinking about taking us out to his tool shed. Because when we got out the tool shed, that son of a bitch would smile. I could say, you want to get down on your knees and unbuckle my belt? Or do you want me to take it off and use it on you? After a while, I made myself numb, so, But my sister...
Okay. Hey. Oh, God. I didn't know. I'm sorry. That's fucking horrible, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's also not true.
And also, recently, 1917 is certainly worth looking at for shot development and choreography by the DOP Roger Deakins. Beautiful use of colour in that night scene there, and shot development here, particularly I think with Roger Deakins' work, even this kinetic action, is to lose the camera's moves in the action on the screen, so you're just not aware of a self-conscious camera. So, hope you found that useful in your plans towards shot development. So I'm going to leave you with a clip from a 1950s film, before there was any remote focusing or any gimbals. But it's a great shot that develops tension and suspense. So enjoy watching it, and of course it's also shot at night, so there was a considerable amount of lighting to be undertaken, especially when you consider that back then the film stock wasn't as sensitive as it was now, or indeed there was no electronic filming. So you really did have to put a lot of light into a scene in order to get the film to react to it.
You folks American citizens?
I am, yes.
Where were you born, miss?
Mrs.
What?
Philadelphia.
The name is Vargas. Hey, Jim! You see who's here? Sure, Mr. Vargas. Out on the trail of another dope ring?
Out on the trail of a chocolate soda for my wife.
Your wife?
Barely a bride, officer.
Hey, can I get through? A lot of talk up here about how you cracked that Grandy business.
Yeah, we
hear you caught the big boss.
Only one of them. The Grandys are a big family. Good night.
No purchases, Mr. Lineker.
Hey, I got this.
You're American citizen, miss?
I got this ticking noise.
Yeah, okay.
No, really, this
Good night.
ticking noise in my head.
Mike, do you realize this is the very first time we've been together in my country?
You realize I haven't kissed you in over an hour? ¿Qué pasó?
No sé, un carro explotó.
Mike, what happened?
That car that just passed is